You wouldn't know it by looking at them, but some celebrities in Hollywood still stand for what's right. One comedy star risked his reputation speaking at America's largest evangelical college. Another painted Jesus after tragedy nearly destroyed him. And a sitcom queen watched her career crumble because she refused to compromise her beliefs. And today, we're going to be uncovering their stories, starting with the Wedding Crashers star who stood on stage in front of 19,000 people and admitted something that shocked everyone. But before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because the Jim Carrey, from Ace Ventura to The Mask to Bruce Almighty, Jim Carrey made the world laugh for decades. But in 2015, Jim Carrey's world shattered in a way no punchline could fix when his girlfriend, Catriona White, took her own life. The grief alone was unbearable, and you could see it on his face. But then it got worse. Her family blamed him for her death, dragging him through a legal nightmare that would eventually prove him innocent, but not before it nearly destroyed him. Now, most people in that situation would break, but Jim did something different. He turned to Jesus, not in some dramatic overnight conversion, but in a quiet, desperate search for something bigger than his pain, and he came out of it with new, surprising wisdom.
Ultimately, I believe that suffering leads to salvation.
Now here's how he got there. Jim realized he had a choice to make.
And then we make one of two decisions. We either decide to go through the gate of resentment, which leads to vengeance, which leads to self-harm, which leads to harm to others, or we go through the gate of forgiveness, which leads to grace.
Jim chose grace. He started painting, not his usual abstract work, but images of Jesus. He was trying to process something he couldn't put into words, wrestling with what it means when the only way forward is forgiveness.
He suffered terribly, and he was broken by it, to the point of doubt and a feeling of absolute abandonment, which all of you felt. And then there was a decision to be made. And the decision was to look upon the people who were causing that suffering, or the situation that was causing that suffering, with compassion and with forgiveness.
Now, Jim's story about choosing forgiveness over bitterness. Patricia Heaton, 9 seasons of Everybody Loves Raymond, 2 Emmy Awards, America's favorite TV mom. Then in 2004, she made a decision that nearly ended it all when she started speaking openly about her pro-life beliefs. And Hollywood responded exactly how you'd expect. They blacklisted her. Most people would have backed down. Some would have even issued an apology just to save their career. Yet Patricia decided to double down, because her faith was built on something that happened when she was just 12 years old. Her mother died unexpectedly, which is why her faith is so important.
The beauty of being a Catholic is this is not the last time I will ever see my mother. We will be together again. There's just this period where she's not here.
That's it. That's the foundation everything else stands on. Not politics, not activism, just the simple, powerful belief that death isn't the end and that truth matters more than applause. So when Hollywood pushed, Patricia pushed back harder. She kept speaking, started producing content that reflected her values, refused to apologize for believing what the world calls foolish. And here's the beautiful irony. By risking her career for her faith, she actually built something more lasting than any sitcom could provide. Patricia Heaton proves that sometimes the biggest risk is staying true to what you believe when the entire world is telling you to compromise. And in a town built on compromise, that kind of courage is revolutionary. 7 stars, 7 different journeys, 1 destination. From Vince Vaughn's honest questioning to Patricia Heaton's unwavering. Anthony Hopkins. But here's the thing about Hopkins. He never saw himself as a legend. He was just trying to survive his own mind. Growing up in Wales, he was the weird kid who didn't fit in anywhere. Then he found acting. Shakespeare made sense when nothing else did. Eventually, he became one of Britain's most respected actors. But behind those iconic performances was a man drowning in alcohol, anxiety, and the constant fear that he was a fraud. Then came 1975. One day, Hopkins woke up in an Arizona hotel room, blackout drunk, with no memory of how he got there.
Then I realized I was in big trouble, because I couldn't remember anything. And I was driving a car, drunk, out of my skull. Then on that fatal day, I realized I needed help. So I got it.
He joined the AA, and honestly, this might as well have been the crossroad moment that changed everything, but not for the reasons you might think. See, during one AA meeting, one woman asked him a simple but crucial question: why don't you just trust in God? And well, that question cracked something open. And even though Hopkins wasn't religious, he never drank again from that day forward. Today, he can proudly say he's been sober for over 50 years. But don't think for a second that he didn't find just the thing to fill that void without corrupting his spirit.
I feel every day as I get older anyway, is that it's all a miracle. I mean, my heart beats, lungs breathe. That is an extraordinary phenomenon.
There's this verse in 2 Corinthians 5:17 that says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. That's Hopkins. He lives like someone who was rescued from the noise, from addiction, from needing to prove anything, really. And speaking of rewritten, Kathy Ireland. Kathy Ireland was everywhere in the 80s and 90s. Sports Illustrated covers for 13 consecutive years. She was basically the face of an entire generation's idea of beauty. But here's what nobody tells you about being that famous, that beautiful, and that successful. It's that it can leave you completely empty. And Kathy felt it. That something was Jesus. And how she managed to eventually cross paths with him is pretty interesting, because it only took her mom being thoughtful for it to happen.
I'm a slow learner, made many mistakes over the years. Got saved at 18 because my mom packed a Bible in my suitcase without telling me she'd just become a Christian.
But here's the thing. Kathy ended up spending decades without realizing that the seemingly inconspicuous gift her mother gave her would end up being all that mattered.
I was such a slow learner because I was 44 before I finally read the Bible in its entirety, and it was bittersweet.
See, timing isn't always everything. And it's pretty safe to say that nowadays, Kathy is exactly where God always wanted her to be.
The most important relationship in my life is Jesus. And without that, I would... I shudder to think where I would be.
There's this beautiful verse in Hebrews 11:1 that says, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. That's exactly what happened to Ireland. She moved from believing in God to believing God.
He's everything.
Today, Ireland runs a billion-dollar business empire and uses that platform to fund crisis pregnancy centers and speak truth to a culture that desperately needs to hear it. But if you think Ireland had it tough balancing beauty and faith, the next woman on our list faced something 10 times darker, and it nearly destroyed her before she even had a chance to fight back. Brooke Shields. Listen, Brooke Shields is one of the most beautiful women on the planet, right? And if you were to guess that she's not exactly the poster child for Christian living, you'd be right. After all, her career has been built in an industry that doesn't exactly prioritize godliness. But here's the twist. Brooke is actually trying to walk away from all of that now. And she's been walking away for a long time. She recently said something that stopped people in their tracks.
I was evidently their master plan, which is ridiculous.
What master plan is she talking about? Well, to understand that, you need to know just how dark Brooke's past really was, and most people have no idea. Tough, they think they do. See, at just 12 years old, Brooke Shields was already a household name. By 15, she was one of the most recognizable faces on earth. But fame came with a price Hollywood never warns you about. She was cast in controversial films that pushed boundaries she was too young to understand, paraded in front of cameras, and asked wildly inappropriate questions. Check this out.
The commercials that a lot of people would see you as a just kitten.
How do you feel about all this fuss that's being made over you? You really are an exquisite-looking young lady. I know you've been told that, but isn't she a pretty girl?
For decades after, Brooke struggled with therapy, depression, and a growing emptiness that success couldn't touch.
It's all about what's going to sell.
But then faith arrived when she needed it most, bringing something no amount of fame ever could, and she welcomed it with open arms. Now Brooke lives quietly away from the spotlight. She finally saw Hollywood for what it really was, a machine that never cared about her, only what she could sell. And maybe that's the whole point. You can have the world's applause and still feel completely lost. But one moment of real peace with God is worth more than a lifetime of fame. But while Brooke found faith after surviving the dark, Kelsey Grammer. When Kelsey Grammer signed on to play Pastor Chuck Smith in Jesus Revolution, Hollywood was confused. This was the Frasier guy, the king of witty banter and highbrow comedy.
Can you stop being a shrink and just be like a guy?
Like a guy.
Like a guy. Screw her!
So what was he doing in a faith-based film about hippies finding Jesus in 1970s California? That confusion lasted right up until people learned Grammer's real story. His father was murdered when he was 13. His sister was kidnapped and killed. His half-brothers died in a diving accident. Add in battles with addiction and depression, and you've got a man who should have been completely broken. But something kept reaching out to him through all that darkness.
What's interesting is it's not that I went looking for it. It came and found me. Faith just keeps knocking. It just keeps knocking on the door. It keeps showing up. I was in shock at certain times that right in the middle of a sort of a reverie that was, filled with grief, I would get a joyful moment, a voice, a quiet reassurance, a touch.
So now when we circle back to Jesus' revolution, it becomes pretty clear that this role was super personal.
He's a man looking for his own faith and finds it as well.
The film tells the story of a traditional pastor who opened his church doors to outcasts and misfits. But if you think Grammer's transformation is powerful, wait until you hear about the supermodel who discovered that beauty and faith don't have to be enemies. But before we dive in, I'd like to mention something crucial. If you're enjoying faith-based celebrity insights like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to God on the Move. It really helps us reach more people. Looks nothing like what you'd expect. Vince Vaughn. Here's the thing about Vince Vaughn that most people miss. Sure, he made a career out of crashing weddings and fast-talking his way through comedy, but he actually stands for something way deeper than Hollywood would like you to believe. In 2016, Vince Vaughn stepped onto the stage at Liberty University, America's largest evangelical college and not exactly Hollywood's usual turf. Introduced by fellow man of faith Mel Gibson, Vaughn didn't miss a beat. He smiled, encouraged the Christian graduates. It was wholesome, unexpected, and oddly perfect.
He's the man of steel.
Nice to be with you here today. I am Superman. Mel does not tell stories out of school, but I want to say congratulations to all of you and your families on this great day. What a great accomplishment, and great place to share this experience with each other, and excited for your futures.
Vince may seem like an odd choice to share remarks at a Christian college when you consider that Vaughn built his reputation on R-rated comedies that Liberty students undoubtedly steer clear of. But here's what makes it click. Vaughn deviated from his usual comedy roles in the Christian film Hacksaw Ridge, a war film directed by Mel Gibson, where Vince played a sergeant facing soldiers who actually believed in something bigger than survival. The film tells the story of Desmond Doss, a man who refused to carry a weapon into battle because of his faith. And it turns out that working on that project did something to Vaughn.
I think it's impossible to not hear these stories of these folks and not be moved by them and inspired.
Are you guys spiritual in any ways?
I am, yeah.
Playing opposite that kind of conviction, even in a fictional setting, made Vaughn reconsider what real courage actually looks like. His faith may not be loud, but here's what is clear. He's searching, and maybe that's exactly where God wants him right now, in that honest space of seeking out a patient God who is waiting with open arms. So let's keep Vince Vaughn in our prayers, because humility like that is often the first step towards something big.